Welcome to Drill Down Earnings. We have quarterly results from NVIDIA, the company you've been waiting to hear from. I'm Cory Johnson, Chief Market Strategist from Epistrophy Capital Research. We look at the 50 most important companies in technology. This might be the most important company in technology. Of course, the maker of those chips that are powering AI and the largest company in the world by market cap. Q1 earnings better than expected, but that's just what Wall Street was expecting. And these numbers, I will say, were also better than my expectations as well. $44.1 billion in revenues, up 69% on a year-over-year basis. Data center revenues in particular, which is $39 billion worth of their business, it's the biggest part of their business by a long shot, up 73% on a year-over-year basis. But let's dig a little bit deeper than the headline numbers and see what we look at here. So one of the things that jumped out was the profitability really did take a dive. A company that was doing 60% operating margins, better than 60% operating margins not too long ago, did only 49% in the quarter because of the China export bans that were announced in April. They took a $4.5 billion write down. They said they lost $2.5 billion in sales of their H20 chips, which were designed specifically to go into China. No more. They expect ultimately in Q2 an $8 billion impact. So a real hit to their margins there in the quarter, but that is one time in nature. They had a lot of good things going on. Their GB200s, their NVL72 racks drove 70% of their data center compute out there in their sales. 72,000 GPUs are shipping weekly. 72,000 GPUs shipping weekly. It's just amazing numbers. Their GB300, their launch has started. Sampling is happening. It's doing okay, they say. It's drop-in compatible, so they say that the customers shouldn't have to wait to start their programming tasks while they wait for those chips. And they say that inference is really happening. This isn't just about training AI models. Models are being used. Knowledge is being inferred through those models. That things, customers like Microsoft have done 100 trillion tokens. Those are the measure of how much inference is happening there. And they've seen just real big developments, including with DeepSeek, the thing that was supposed to be a threat to them. They actually see it as a benefit to NVIDIA. And their networking business, revenues up 64%. On a quarter-over-quarter basis, up to $5 billion. Their Spectrum X business, they say, is now annualizing at $8 billion. Now, we talked about geography, and I want to talk about something that the company doesn't talk about much, which is as China has shrunk in terms of a percentage of revenues, they've seen real big growth in Singapore and in Taiwan. Singapore, however, I think it's a concern. There have been concerns that some chips shipped to Singapore have actually been rerouted illegally to China, or China somehow gotten their hands on those. So it's something I'm keeping an eye on. In the charts, for those of you watching on Spotify and YouTube and not just listening to the podcast, can see that the orange chart that starts to appear of Singapore is a bigger part of their business. It wasn't even worth mentioning 4 years ago. Now it's actually bigger than China for this company. The China business, I should also mention, is still growing and bigger than it used to be, despite these export controls, up over 100% on a year-over-year basis. And briefly, I do want to mention that when it was game over for gaming is coming back now, up 9% on a year-over-year basis. Finally, for this company that was one built on gaming, but now it's built on data centers. Used to be, if you go back only to 2021, gaming was a bigger business than data centers. Now data centers up to 90% of their business, and what a big business it is, pushing $40 billion in the quarter. How did the stock react? It was a good quarter. Stock market liked it. 4% rise in after hours trading after a 19% gain in the last year. So it's done basically double what the S&P 500 has done, which is hard when it's such a big component of the S&P 500. But as I mentioned, the controls, the export bans in China aren't leading to less sales in China. No, $5.6 billion in the quarter, 124% over the last year. But Jensen Huang really thinks that they should be allowed to go into China and sell more and design for China, because that's where the designers of AI are. Here's what Jensen Huang had to say in the conference call.
China is one of the world's largest AI markets and a springboard to global success. With half of the world's AI researchers based there, the platform that wins China is positioned to lead globally. Today, however, the $50 billion China market is effectively closed to U.S. industry. China's AI moves on with or without U.S. chips. It has the compute to train and deploy advanced models. The question is not whether China will have AI. It already does. The question is whether one of the world's largest AI markets will run on American platforms. Shielding Chinese chip makers from U.S. competition only strengthens them abroad and weakens America's position. Export restrictions have spurred China's innovation and scale. The AI race is not just about chips. It's about which stack the world runs on.
All right, what does this all mean? What's your big drill down earnings takeaway? And what's the one number that tells you a whole lot? Well, NVIDIA just reporting Q1 earnings, a really great quarter for this company. Your essential summary tells you they're $44.1 billion in sales. That's up 69% from a year ago when we saw this company put up one of the best quarters in history, and yet it's 69% larger now. And they said demand is even stronger now. Just amazing from this company. Data centers making up most of that $39.1 billion, but that's not that number. It's not the number that tells you the most, the one number that tells you a whole lot. The number that tells you a whole lot is that gross margins are at 75% for this company. Just fantastic gross margins of really expensive chips, and they're taking in lots of profits from lots of sales like we've never seen in the history of business in the world. It's incredible. All right, thanks for checking out Drill Down Earnings. I'm Cory Johnson.